Conspiracy theory number 2. Anita Sarkeesian is not a real gamer.
I'm not a fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this.
Or even a real feminist.
I had to learn how to be a feminist. So throughout high school and college, I was involved with clubs, organizing against wars in the Middle East, raising awareness about climate change, and demanding gay and lesbian rights. So I was heavily involved in social justice causes, but I still didn't call myself a feminist. At the time, I may have even uttered the dreaded phrase, "I believe in equality, but I'm not a feminist."
She's actually a con artist who fakes and orchestrates her own harassment in order to gain sympathy, which she uses to scam people into giving her money.
This is where the professional victims come in. Both parties benefit. The media gets a competent quote-unquote expert about a given issue, and the professional victim gets fame, exposure, and most importantly, money. The way to know you're dealing with a grade A professional victim is when they insert themselves into controversies that have absolutely nothing to do with them, and completely hijack the narrative, with the help of the journalism media, of course. Let's think about Gamergate. Now, for those of you who don't know, Gamergate is about games journalists who are supposed to rate and review games for the benefit of the consumer, which has recently been exposed as being in bed, literally in some cases, with developers. A developer makes a shitty game, and these supposed journalists give it a high score, because they were either directly paid, as is the case with major developers, but in the case of indie developers, the journalist may personally know the developer, sometimes in the biblical sense. Now, this corruption was exposed when the ex-boyfriend of one of these indie developers ranted online about the men, including journalists, that his girlfriend was screwing. And when consumers went to the publications that employed these journalists, you'd think they had been fired or something. But instead, these games journalists circled the wagons and declared that gamers were dead, and that gamers were hateful, misogynist bigots, and then it was on. Now, Gamergate is pretty old news at this point, but it's important to understand what it started out as, and what it's always been about. So, I have a question for you. What does Anita Sarkeesian have to do with Gamergate? She's not a developer, she's not a journalist, she's not even a gamer. She admitted on camera she doesn't play video games, and stole the game footage she used in her videos from other people and didn't even credit them or ask permission. However, Google any mainstream articles regarding Gamergate, and it's all about Anita Sarkeesian and her crusade to stop women from being in video games unless they meet her contradictory standards of how she wants women portrayed in video games. Now, Anita Sarkeesian is just one recent example, but there's another one. What does Brianna Wu have to do with Gamergate? Now, unlike Anita, she actually is a developer, but I haven't heard anyone admit to having sex with her in exchange for favorable ratings. What she did was taunt supporters of Gamergate with a meme on her Twitter. And after she threw the first punch and people from Gamergate taunted her back, she claimed she was being harassed, and now she makes 6 figures a year from Patreon because she was harassed after picking a fight. Why am I going on and on about this? The truth is, the best way to explain a professional victim is through examples. Anita Sarkeesian raised over $150,000 on Kickstarter to make YouTube videos. I'm making YouTube videos, and I didn't get shit. She also gets paid $5,000 whenever she speaks at an event. Brianna Wu makes over $150,000 a year from Patreon alone. Being a victim is business, and business is good. Now, Anita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu are good examples of professional victims, but they pale, pun intended, in comparison to the biggest professional victim in the world, the ODB of SJW, Reverend Al Sharpton. Now, I realize that this video series is about feminism, and Al Sharpton is about racism, not sexism. However, Al Sharpton has been around for decades, and he literally laid the groundwork for contemporary professional victims like Anita and Brianna. He's a living legend, and no analysis of professional victims would be complete without examining the good Reverend. So when you think of Al Sharpton, you probably notice how he's always on the scene whenever there's an incident involving assumed white racism. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner. And that's only in the last couple years. He inserts himself into the controversy and speaks on behalf of others. He makes himself the go-to media personality. He even has his own show on NBC, and this guy's a total dipshit. What?
But resist we much. We must and we will much about that be committed.
Why is this guy so influential? Well, to explain that, we have to look at his organization, the National Action Network. I'm going to read an article from the New York Post from January 5th, 2015. Not the whole thing, just a small portion. It's from about 2 weeks ago. It's called How Sharpton Gets Paid Not to Cry Racism at Corporations. The following is from a section in the article called Cost of Doing Business. Sharpton raised $1 million for National Action Network at his 60th birthday bash in October, with donations rolling in from unions and corporate roster of contributors including AT&T, McDonald's, Verizon, and Walmart. Companies have long gotten in line to pay Sharpton. Macy's and Pfizer has forked over thousands to National Action Network, as have General Motors, American Honda, and Chrysler. National Action Network has repeatedly and without success asked GM for donations for 6 years, beginning in August 2000. A GM spokesperson told the Post. Then in 2006, Sharpton threatened a boycott of GM over a planned closing of an African American-owned dealership in the Bronx. He picketed outside GM's Fifth Avenue headquarters. GM wrote checks to National Action Network for $5,000 in 2007 and another $5,000 in 2008. Look, it's obvious when you look at the evidence that Al Sharpton doesn't give a shit about black people or black progress. He waxes indignant about black car dealerships being closed down, or things like disparity between blacks being promoted at lower rates than whites, but once you cut him a check, fuck those people. He doesn't care about the people who lost their job or didn't get promoted. He knows these companies are not racist, but he also knows that he has a corrupt media that will support him in calling them racist, and they had better pay up. That is the professional victim. So how do you deal with a professional victim? Well, here's what you don't do. You never threaten them. That's exactly what they want. They deliberately provoke because they need to be victimized to maintain their narrative of oppression. They're basically trolls, but kind of a reverse troll. While a normal troll seeks to offend and incite responses for the lulz, the professional victim seeks to be offended and harassed. If you don't harass them, they'll provoke until someone takes the bait. Many people want to engage with the professional victim because they're the most recognized and famous. They figure that if they can debate these prominent victims and take them down a peg, it will do far more than taking down 1,000 Tumblrettes. And they will be right, except that the professional victim will never agree to an honest debate. The truth is, they know they're peddling bullshit, and the last thing they want to do is have an honest debate and risk being exposed. This is why the other telltale sign of a professional victim is the abundant use of censorship. Comments will be deleted or simply turned off. Opposing voices will be banned. Your IP address will be blocked. You will have your Twitter account suspended. You will be doxxed and fired from your job. There is almost no load the professional victim will not sink to in order to silence debate and criticism. The professional victim's power comes from their influence in the corrupt journalism media, but it is also the source of their weakness. It's important to understand that you never engage the professional victim directly. You attack the media that enables them through their advertisers. Remember, it's all just business, so you have to think in terms of business. Let's say you hate Walmart. What good will you accomplish by storming into your local Walmart with a bullhorn and shouting about how bad Walmart is at the customers? You'll just get arrested and actually hurt your cause by making other people that agree with you look like insane people by association. So what do you do to hurt Walmart? You shop at Target. And you tell all your friends to shop at Target. Pretty soon Walmart is losing money and they change their business. So why bother? Why would you ever want to engage a professional victim? Honestly, you shouldn't. You will very rarely have anything to gain. They will never be interested in a debate because they don't even believe their own bullshit. The truth is, Anita Sarkeesian doesn't give a shit about women any more than Al Sharpton gives a shit about black people. They're just looking to shake down people for money and power, and as long as it furthers their agenda, the corrupt journalist media is only too happy to help. The truth is that feminists like Anita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu aren't even really feminists at all. They're just using feminism as their angle to make money. But without the media enabling them, they disappear. Remember Sui Park? She was an Asian professional victim that tried to get Stephen Colbert canceled for making an Asian joke. Well, it didn't work, primarily because people don't generally believe Asians are oppressed. Her 15 minutes fizzled out, and that was it. Without the media enabling her, she had to go get a real job. She doesn't even have a Patreon.
It is kind of funny because it's so ridiculous. This is by far the most popular theory and takes one of two forms. One is Anita provokes the harassment on purpose by trolling and tricking the poor innocent kids on 4chan into harassing and threatening her. Version 2 is similar but takes it a step further. Anita fakes the threats and harassment she receives on a regular basis, either by sending these threats to herself via sock puppet accounts or by enlisting an army of feminists to do it for her. Where is that army? Seriously.
It's mostly about transferring money from taxpayers to people that they call victims. But there are so many victims.
So many women still earning less than men on the job. And women of color often making even less.
Catherine, what I don't get here is they're applauding people making less.
It's definitely a creepy scene there.
Yes.
It's like, ladies, underpaid. I think obviously what they're applauding is the now inevitable follow-up sentence that comes after that statistic is cited, which is the government needs to do something. We're going to pass a bunch of laws. We're going to investigate employers. You don't even have to say it anymore. It's so strongly implied. And again, what Hillary is doing there, and what so many politicians have done before her, is say, there's one way to fix this, and luckily for you guys, that way is putting me into power.
It's fear-mongering. They're playing on the fears of people that you will not get ahead without them. And these studies have been debunked. The facts are there. The choices people make affects how we earn, men or women. But they need to sell you fear, because fear makes you dependent on them, John. It makes you go, well, hold it. You mean I've got less chance? I need you. You're my champion.
It works. It works for them. Hillary is constantly talking about workers being abused, and this confuses me because we don't like unemployment. Not working really hurts people, but then when people get jobs, Hillary says the jobs are abusive. In her campaign announcement speech, she said she was running for president.
For the factory workers and food servers who stand on their feet all day.
It's like applaud suffering.
Yeah, I think it actually gets even more kind of troubling or offensive when you take this globally, when you hear Americans sort of fret about the victims who work in factories overseas, or the conditions are perhaps even worse. Just because something is bad doesn't mean there's a victim, and it doesn't mean government should be the entity that tries to fix it.
If they aren't slaves, and most aren't, they chose that factory job because their prior option was worse.
Yeah, working on farms, I think, is pretty terrible.
Now, we ask people on social media, Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook, to comment on this. Here's a sample from Twitter. Gary Collard says, victimhood is desperately sought in America because it confers privilege.
It gives you a special status, but what does it take away from you?
Well, plenty.
I mean, we used to play at recess. Who was king of the hill, who was the fastest runner, who was the best thrower, who got the best grades on a test. As kids, we naturally compete with each other, but when you get to college, you're being sold that outcome again, that you're special class, you're this. When I went to college, I was actually offered the chance to live on the Black Hall, because there was a hall that was for me so I could commune with people that were of the same pigment. I actually didn't understand
feel more
it.
Comfortable.
Right. I felt uncomfortable actually being told that I needed to be with a certain group of people because of skin color to be comfortable.
If there wasn't an incentive there to make accusations or claim victim status or sort of generally cry wolf even when something wasn't really wrong, kids wouldn't do it. They don't want to be a victim. They just see an angle.
Right, but can I just throw this last thought in? This is where I go back to the parents.
Let's look at these. You play Monopoly. We had these get out of jail cards made up. This one says, you are a victim, get out of responsibility. That's sort of the advantage of being a victim that the person on Twitter was talking about.
Right. I didn't accept instant victimology when I got to the school because I knew that this was a false narrative. So this is the generational theft of our future that I talk about when I say that if you have people who are raised with a dependency culture and they raise others with a dependency culture, you begin to see how we grow to where we are today with tens of millions of people in this culture.
Are you a victim? Lots of people say they are. Marion Barry, the mayor of Washington, caught smoking crack, said, I'm a victim of a racist plot. Hillary Clinton is a victim of the right-wing conspiracy. Lindsay Lohan drives drunk and breaks parole and then complains she's a victim of cruel and unusual punishment. Michael Sam says his NFL career would have gone better had he not come out as gay. Most everyone's inclined to complain. In fact, I'm a victim. I'm a stutterer. Sometimes when I speak, I block on certain words, mostly B's and D's, and I worry if I have to say, is this better? When I fake a stutter, it becomes a real one. That I'll block like that and humiliate myself. So had today's disability laws existed when I began work, I now wonder, would I have fought to overcome my stuttering? Maybe not. Maybe I would have sued Fox demanding they accommodate my disability, give me an off-camera job. Or maybe I would have just stopped working, collected a government disability check. So I'm glad today's disability laws didn't exist then, because without having them as a crutch, I pushed through, mastered speaking, and I'm here. Things are good. Well, not always good. There was the day when I was doing a report on how pro wrestling is fake, and this happened.
I think this is fake.
You think it's fake?
The wrestler was 6'6", 260 pounds, so that hurt. Then he hit me again. Afterward, loud noises hurt my ears. I felt like a victim. Someone then said that the wrestler's boss, Vince McMahon, told the wrestler to hit me, so I sued McMahon. And as part of the lawsuit, McMahon's lawyers demanded I see a doctor that they chose. Their doctor then told me, I think your ear pain is a jurosomatic illness. What? I said. He answered, jurosomatic, like psychosomatic. You hold on to your pain because you're involved in a lawsuit. Well, I was furious and I screamed at him. You haven't even examined me and you make this accusation? But guess what? After McMahon settled the lawsuit, my ear pain gradually went away. Was the pain jurosomatic? Was I holding on to it because litigation kept reminding me that I was an angry victim? Maybe. As I said, the pain did go away once the suit settled. It makes me wonder about those well-intended government programs meant to help disabled people. Social Security disability payments once went to blind people, people in wheelchairs, people who clearly were disabled. But now billions of dollars go to people who say they're disabled by things like headaches and back pain, stress. America spent $46 billion on disability payments in 1990. Last year, it was more than triple that, and the program will soon go broke. But the increase in payments makes no sense. Medicine has improved since 1990, and people do less hard manual labor. There should be fewer disabled people. Why are there more? Are the people suffering from those headaches and backaches lying? Some probably are, but I bet many have real pain. So is it jurosomatic pain or government handout-o-matic pain? I don't know what the right word is, but I do know that when you reward something, you get more of it.